my usual monthly check-in with her. She was really interested in the Clean Water Services trip and what we learned. That's an area of high interest to her. So we had good discussions around what learned at the Water Congress, as well as some of the. We had the AOC District 8 meeting, and we all attended that. There's a lot on the agenda, and we did make it through the time that was allotted. Big shout out to Nick Acone for representing the county so well. I think he did a great job in presenting as part of the team from the 3 different counties. We had good discussions. We had a good discussion about who's going to be representing us into the future, and more on that. I will be the District 8 chairperson for the coming year, and we're still looking at a switch in relationship to Commissioner Savas and whether or not that will allow me to sit on the legislative committee as well. We had our town hall that same evening, and by the way, that town hall precluded any of our attendance at the MPAC meeting. Mayor Callaway did tell people that that's what was going on, so they knew. Chris Defabot did a great job of doing a review of what happened at MPAC, and I can forward that on, or I will ask Chris to forward that on to the rest of you for your review. It was also in a little briefer form in Friday Facts. Just a minute here. Technical difficulties. There we go. On Friday, I attended the Salzman Road Senior Housing Sky Breaking along with Commissioner Fye and Chair Harrington. Is that Thursday?
Yeah.
I guess I was busy doing something else on Friday.
Yeah.
So thank you for that correction. It's really an interesting project. It's in my district. It's right off of Salzman Road, and it's in coordination with Cedar Mill Christ United Methodist Church. It's senior housing that will be focusing on LGBTQ seniors. So it was really very moving, and I'll let others talk about that. This week, I'm meeting with Kale Wambacher regarding the design for the remodel of Ron Tompkins Stadium. So, and I will most likely be working more remote this week and coming in all the time. So. Next.
I can go next. Thank you. Welcome back. I'm glad you're recovering well, and good to see you here. I too attended the AOC District 8 meeting in person in Oregon City. It was a bit of a drive for us in Washington County, so I'm really looking forward to us hosting and starting out in Washington County, I would assume. At that meeting, Washington County was well represented. 4 of us were there, which meant we were looked at for committee work, I would say.
Coerced, maybe.
Yeah, we've got a lot of looks to see if double sign up and triple sign up, but Jerry and I stayed strong.
We held our ground at legal people.
We did.
Well, I tried to take that off the table as well.
Thank you so much. Yes, yes, you did. However, I did put my name forward for HHS, the Health and the Human Services Committee as a co-chair. So look forward to hearing what that comes about. We had our town hall, and one thing I heard residents asking for more when it comes to climate adaptation and climate preparedness in Washington County, and folks are looking for more opportunities to help where they can when it comes to working with the county on solutions. And I just wanted to say that climate resolution will be coming forward in the next few weeks from Commissioner Pantries and myself. Regional transportation, we had our workshop number 3, which is with JPAC members and Metro Council. And this was also in person. We've been having these meetings in person, and it was at the zoo. And we discussed really good policy questions. And one of the questions was, what updates should be considered in the 2023 RTP to develop funding investment approach to advance safety and equity outcomes on urban arterials. So the conversation on Thursday was really focused on urban arterials. And then the second policy question that we were to discuss and come up with solutions or suggestions was how might regional partners coordinate resources and projects in the 2023 RTP to identify a combination of corridor planning to be addressed in emphasizing urban arterials over other projects. And then the third policy question that we were considering or discussing that day was how should desired equity, and this is really one that I really liked and appreciated having a robust conversation. How should desired equity and safety outcomes and impacts inform decisions in the 2023 RTP to strategically invest in urban arterials? And in what ways could high injury corridors, high equity focused areas, and the planned transit network should advance safety and equity goals on urban arterials? And then the last question was, what changes to the design and project development process are needed to support development of complete streets on urban arterials? And what type of implementation activities in the RTP could support a better process? Those are the four questions that we were discussing at that meeting, and had a really robust conversation. We heard a lot. So look forward to how the team condense, and I'll be sharing that. The feedback and some of the goals and strategies we came forward. And then I also attended the Salzman celebration, groundbreaking. Chair Harrington and Commissioner Trace did a great job of being a keynote speakers at that event and the groundbreaking, and I really appreciated it. I learned a lot in your speeches of the project, and it's really exciting. It was very well attended and very, very well attended. There were a lot of people. I didn't expect that. First time I was expecting 2 people, and the community showed up, and a lot of the developers were there, and it was really good to engage on a journey of a conversation about when that started and how long ago that conversation started and where we are. And Chair Harrington appreciated the timeline. So I'll let you talk about that.
That's it. I guess I better explain that one.
Exactly. We've got a few pictures of it there. So. And moving forward with this week, I will be speaking at Pacific University on Wednesday about how my background in public health helps frame my work as a county commissioner. So I look forward to that invitation and that conversation at Pacific University. And then there's a bus tour on Southwest Corridor that I'll be participating on Thursday afternoon. And this is a tour that was organized by Metro President Lynn Peterson. So look forward. This tour will include Metro councilor members on Metro planning and representative from PTOT and then TriMet, and along with local mayors and state and city, Portland City councilors, leaders. So look forward to that conversation. And I think Chair Hunter, you're attending as well on that, or no?
I don't recall receiving
okay.
an invite for this one.
No, okay.
Yeah,
I'll do my best to represent us.
yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
So I was on a Southwest Corridor tour years ago as a Metro counselor, and it was a really good tour.
Mhm.
But the locally preferred alternative has been well worked during that whole process that followed that tour. So yeah, would have liked to, but another time perhaps.
And then on Friday, I will visit the Safe Rest Spots on 17th Avenue. Thank you, Brenda, for organizing this to celebrate the opening of this newest temporary village shelter. And this is a shelter that's located in Hillsborough. And I believe that folks are moving next week. That shelter. I'm excited to see the village model and being used, and look forward to working with our partners to get locations stood up as we move into the winter. I'm really excited for that visit as well.
Are other commissioners able to go to that this Friday?
Brenda, sorry to put you on the spot. Do you know the time? 10 to 11.
On my calendar.
I've got, is that the Safe Rest Pods on
Yes.
17th, the photo op tour? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good. I know I won't be able to. I have guests in town this weekend. So I'll just follow up at another time. But if you want to see it as well, we can have Daniel coordinate with your schedule too. So I'm just very sensitive to making sure that all commissioners have the opportunity of getting the tours of the different facilities. So
Mhm.
for example, I know I have a Bridge Shelter Hillsborough tour coming up later this month. So,
Mhm. And I think Commissioner Willie and I did that together, correct?
That's correct.
And with that, Chair Harrington and the rest of the board, that concludes my update.
oh, if I could ask on the RTP workshop, 4 meaty questions. Did you meet for half a day or how did that go? With a conversation with that many people with 4 multi-part questions?
We had 1 hour to discuss those for meaty questions.
Wow, okay.
But I think we try to stay at the 50,000 foot level on these answering questions and then focus on what are some low hanging fruits. So I think the facilitator did a really good job of sort of honing us to focus on low hanging fruits, not necessarily solving world problems with these questions. So I would say we were very effective, but in trying to answer. So I look forward myself to see what the rest of the table said. But the report output seemed like people were really able to have a robust conversation within that hour as well. And
Well, the one question that particularly, there were 2 of them, the last one,
Mhm.
the last question, but also the one about coordinating transportation funding. Because it seems to me like there is a lot of coordination, right?
Mhm.
We've been squeezing every ounce of value out of limited dollars. So I feel like, but think about it from a wringing a towel. I feel like the towel's pretty dry. What we need is some more water to put on the towel, right? We need more funding to be programming. So, but that's where I was really curious. What are the underlying problems that are asking for that question to be advanced? Is it just in one particular corridor or one particular area or one particular government set?
I think people were all over, starting with the actual definition of how do we define corridors and how to, because some of our corridors, urban arterials were missing from the map itself. And I think that people had a hard time even focusing on saying, well, how do we define urban arterials? And how do we make sure that what's important in one region is also important to the rest of the region, to not focus on prioritizing not just what Metro thinks is the urban arterial, but what do we consider urban arterial? And I think the one agreement is funding and lack of funding at the federal level, at the local level, at the state level. So I think, and in terms of coordination, I think WCCC, the conversation we had was, Washington County is a bit more coordinated when it comes to our funding because we have MISTIP and we're sort of really honing in on fixing. And because of that, we focus on fixing our roads. We don't have a lot of neglected roads in Washington County. That's not true for the rest of the other regions that are in with us, the regional, tri-county wide. So, and I think that was a really interesting conversation to say, how do we bring Washington County along, even though we're advanced and the rest of the folks. So I'm interested to see how do we get around, but the agreement conversation wise was funding.
Okay, alrighty, yep, never ending there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go next. So we've heard about the District 8 AOC meeting. That was a good meeting, and it was good to see guess to be introduced, I think that's my first official AOC meeting.
No, no, you went to the District 8 meeting in 2019.
That was outside of my memory bank, so I'm sorry.
In
for saying that.
2019, yes, you meet
Pandemic.
Roy, it was in Multnomah County.
Yes, that's true. So anyway, met with Derek DeGroot, who is the first vice president, and Derek and I know each other from Association of Oregon and California Counties meetings in Klamath Falls and Roseburg. So it's good to see him again. He was asking if I would consider co-chairing the Transportation and Community Development Committee. I told him I'd have to get back to him on that. So we'll have conversations on that. And then, of course, the town hall. So that's already been reported on. So I appreciate the staff's work on that. That takes time and energy and certainly out of their normal workday. So thank you for that. Met yesterday with Bridget Cook and Olga Acuna on the Preschool for All. And so
Rich Cook, is that what you said?
yeah. And so that was a good conversation. We still differ on how that should be funded. But overall, we agree the concept is good and it's certainly a service that would be good to have. It's just very expensive. And so there's some work from my standpoint, there's some work there. I'll see where they go with that. But it was good that they took the time to meet with me on that, knowing that I don't support where they're going right now. Last afternoon was, if you don't remember, at the fair, we have been missing horses. And certainly the 4-H horse group have not been participating. They have opted to go to the Yamhill Fair. And so we are working with that group and 4-H to get them back kind of in the fold. Leah and certainly the county has spent a considerable amount of money getting the horse arena back up to speed and still not meeting certain specifics, but anyway, it's a little bit of a conflictive issue, but we're working on bringing them back to the fair for 2023. Met with the Cornelius City Council last night. It was the last night for Rob Drake to officially sit in on that meeting as city manager. Peter Brandom is who they've hired away from the city of Hillsborough. Great guy. I'm looking forward to that transition, and he was there as well as Jess and our SHS team made their presentation there last night as well. So good job on that, Jess. And then the only thing else is I appreciate the three of you taking a chunk of time and touring Bybee Lakes coming up in the next few weeks. So thank you for doing that. And I'm sure you'll enjoy and appreciate that. Okay.
Overwhelmed with all those presentations. First of all, Nafisa, thank you for trying to get me on the AOC. I was virtual, as many of you may have known, and I couldn't hear a word, barely could see things, and you kept giving a messages. I got lots of apologies, which was as a staff, but anyway,
I was wondering if you could hear because it was pretty quiet.
I could not hear a
in that
word.
room.
Could not hear a word, and I was blanking in and out. It was just, And then it was also nice, Nafisa, for me to harass you at your meeting at the zoo and send you little notes. You were kind about it. I think the question was, is how did they deal with those larger issues? That's not a new issue. Now call them great streets. We used to call them the system, and how we deal with that in terms of identification. That's the trick. We had a meeting last night, or I was at a meeting last night with Region 1, and Great Streets was an issue that came up. And if you look at Clackamas County, for instance, they have a number of streets that we all take as state streets here. They have county facilities over there, and their map is a little void of a lot of issues. I mean, a lot of their infrastructure. So it's a very interesting question. I listened to that program with you. I wish you all luck. It's age-old problem that's probably not going to get solved too easily. Nothing is easy. Last night, also heard a bit about the West Side Modal Improvement Study nothing new that we heard because we've been doing that for a while. I asked a question which resonated. I know Metro Council Craddock and asked the same question, and they're really devoid of a lot of business people. I asked how many people were on the committee and how many were business, and they could only identify 2 business people, which we all said somehow it would be good if you had a subcommittee or round something to include them, because that is a huge issue.
Which committee are you referring to?
We're talking about the West Side Modal Improvement Study, and then they have a what they call Urban Mobility Office, and they have a group, and maybe I'm not understanding entirely. Do you understand what the group would be?
Is
that-
this the Metro Committee or the ODOT Committee? That's,
Well, hopefully, yes, that's a good question. Hopefully they're more one and the same, but in either or, there was an identification of a lot of business folks on either. And that's important, particularly out in our area. So that was an interesting, heard a little bit about the freight plan update. The speaker could not be present, and so he got a surrogate, and his surrogate was his boss's boss. So that was interesting. We got the head person, and there's a lot of, everything in life looks simple until you get into it, and everything's more complex than we give everyone else credit for. But in their analysis, I mean, the freight is such an integral part of what we do in the supply chain. Every issue we encounter has supply chain issues, lots and lots of statistics of how they were going to get there, including how people were, dealing with a amount of freight that's going through this state and tends to continue to tick up, and what's going to be the power source. I asked a question which I still find interesting, as we all are excited about electrification. I would like one to go with a car, but what do you do for the trucking industry? And it's a big problem for them, especially if they're coming in from other states who don't have the same set of interests. So do they avoid Oregon by moving around Oregon, or do they go through it? A lot of issues on freight that were fascinating. We met at the Tualatin location. I don't know if you all know that, but that's where ODOT is right now. They've moved out of downtown Portland for the most part. They still have that facility, but they're right there in Tualatin. There was only 3 of us present, Ryan and Paul Savas, myself. Everybody else was virtual. If I said it went well, that would be a misstatement. Had a few hiccups with in and out, but it was a beta test to see how it would work there. But if you ever get a chance, it's an interesting facility. It was apparently the old PERS office before they went up. In fact, PERS is located next to my office up on 68, but this was their old facility. And a big building, a lot of room. I didn't realize that. So it's mostly remote, and they're working all over. And Ryan was saying that presents some challenges in terms of how
about the Region 1 Operations Center. They used to have that downtown.
they still do. They're working on. I don't want to go into it here, but it was interesting. If you like to hear how challenging they're finding it to find workers to come downtown to work. Again, I don't elaborate on that, but they just had a stabbing last week again in Old Town, and so his employees are not feeling safe going there. They don't want to really go out to Tualatin. He's had, I guess it's not a big issue, but so he's trying to get them back in the office to do some things because they have to interrelate. One said, "Oh, I can't come back in. I now live on the coast." And he said, "Well, I guess that's sort of your problem. I'm trying to figure out that that's a personnel issue." He said, the whole dynamics we're seeing here, the whole dynamics has changed. So it's very, very interesting. In regard to a issue that's on the agenda today, the chair asked me to contact the WEA to see whether or not they would be supportive. They're
On CPACE.
yeah, CPACE, and their director was not coming back from vacation until yesterday. 2 of you know this a lot better than I, but they have a whole process of working through their system. They have the material, promised me that they would go through and look at all of that and see how they might go. had a meeting yesterday with the West Side, WorkSource, and WorkSource has really made a large project on valuation and Pam would know this from first service there from Andrew, and it's getting very complicated. We've had meeting every week. We have a meeting on how the valuation criteria would be. But I said, James, this is we're too small an organization to have this complex matrix. Anyway, they're doing that. So that's about all I need to tell you, I think. It's fun.
All righty. Well, thank you. My report out is, I want to thank our staff for participating in the AOC District 8 meeting. Thank you, Commissioner Trees, for the recognizing Nika Kuhn and the other members of the team working on the Aid and Assist Oregon State Hospital situation that will be challenging for the many months ahead, I am sure. We chatted about it at the Tri-County Chair Sync Up meeting, and it was really interesting because both Chair Smith and Chair Kafori have been state legislators. And we were talking about one legislative agenda topic that all counties in AOC can agree on, but we haven't necessarily documented it, is no more unfunded mandates, or just no state unfunded mandates. And so we chatted a little bit about that. And I said, well, gee, when you were state legislators, did you know about this? And they were like, heck no. So they highlighted how they really understand and appreciate how complex the nature of our healthcare system, including our community mental health care system, is, workforce challenges, the complex system, how counties' responsibility with regard to behavioral health really is that the counties have to make sure there is a plan, but that's pretty much it. So many legislators think we provide behavioral health soup to nuts, and then they remember, or anyway, that it's hard to get legislators' attention when so many of them may be new, may only be serving 1 or 2-year terms. So we've got some complex problems. May I ask what's going on?
My connection.
And that's vital for the current topic of the meeting? Question mark? Why don't we take a pause for 10 minutes so that Commissioner Rogers can get his network connection taken care of? Here's that. Okay, thank you. On the Saltzman Road Affordable Housing groundbreaking, this was the first groundbreaking that I'm aware of where they showed the whole timeline from the affordable housing bond measure passed to the grand opening of their project. And it was really illustrative of how many parties were involved with getting to the groundbreaking point that we had. And one of the finance speakers really spoke quite eloquently about the number of, pre-construction, the underwriting for the low-income tax credit. So it was very, very interesting. So those groundbreakings are really well worth it.
Terry, you might tell people that it was a banner that was
Oh,
from like,
yeah.
the door
It was on the
to here. It was on the-
wheeler.
It was on a construction trailer.
Yeah.
So I think when you say it wasn't just like a piece of paper, it was
Yeah.
huge. And it really allowed you to see, like you said, just how many moving parts there are along the way. And for me, excuse me for interrupting.
No,
Terry,
it's quite all right.
for me, I think seeing where the county enters in all the way along the process it was something that we could use here.
Yeah. It's quite humbling, actually.
Yeah.
I looked at it and I was like, "Hmm, so where are we in this process?" So I grabbed a Post-it out of my purse.
Oh, you did the post-it?
We are
I
here.
thought it was very helpful. I was like, okay, we're halfway.
Exactly.
Yeah, you did the.
I wish I
Yeah,
had
of course, Johanna will do that.
Anyway, I have the picture of the banner. It was pretty cool. So, last night was the Advisory Council on Racial Equity first meeting. It was wonderful to meet everyone face to face. We had a reception, a few weeks ago. But it had to be, held by Zoom because this was before we opened up, for face-to-face meetings. So, I was just overjoyed to be in the room with everyone and to have that opportunity to start the process of getting to know one another and talk about the work of the county and the important role that they will provide. So onward ho we go in the month of October. A lot of really, really fun and interesting things coming up that I'm very much looking forward to. So next Monday will be the first in-person set of AOC Legislative Committee and Board of Directors meetings. Well, that's not quite true. We did have one at least in Salem in recent months. But it just seems like so many governments are back to face-to-face meetings that there's a different energy level than meeting just over their Google Meets or in a hybrid fashion. So, and the reason they don't use Zoom is to save costs, and Google Meets doesn't have quite the same, well, it's not a Google Meets problem, it's a room infrastructure problem with microphones, as we experienced with that ODOT region, the ODOT Regional Tolling Advisory Committee meeting. So, and luckily with where that room was, they were able to adjust during a break so that those of us that were there virtually had better audio. So thank you to Chuck and our IT team. There's a lot of, and Kevin, there are a lot of logistics that go about helping us have productive meetings for our virtual attendees as well as those of us in person. So I just have a couple of items later when we go over the formal agenda as well. So that's it from me. Leadership communications. Hello, Ms. Angie.
Hello, Board of Commissioners. Happy Tuesday. So I do have a couple updates. Recently, GR did give a brief update in their Friday update relative to the courts. So I wanted to provide a little bit more information on that. The Oregon Judicial Department recently notified us that they intend to request 2 additional judges for the Washington County Circuit Court. While this is good news, it also presents us with a space challenge of where to put the judges in 2 new courtrooms. Judges need courtrooms. Each judge needs a courtroom. If the request is successful, the 2 new judge positions requested and approved by the Oregon legislature during the 2023 to 2025 biennium would likely start on July 1st, 2024. So that does give us some breathing room to problem solve this current situation. Our success for the benefit of the court, local justice system, and the community we serve depends in part on courtroom space being available. The legislature is unlikely to fund additional judge positions unless Washington County commits to provide two new courtrooms for them. The court and the county have known for years about building conditions and space limitations of the courthouse, as well as the workload of judges and staff. We have also long known about the need for more judges in context of a growing Washington County. As your board knows, there are current discussions occurring on courthouse planning. In the meantime, Washington County facility staff has partnered with the court to expand and remodel court space. County administration, our chief financial officer, facility and parks, and the sheriff's office recently met with the presiding judge, chief criminal judge, and trial court administrator to discuss options to create space for the possibility of the two new judges here in Washington County. More discussions are scheduled to better understand the impact and cost of various proposals. So specifically, next steps from facilities is working with court representative to vet comprehensive list of potential alternatives, feasibility of proposed sites to be evaluated for accessibility, security, casual sequence of displaying and relocating existing programs, and cost effectiveness. There may be short-term solutions, but those need to continue to be worked through with the courts. And priority will be given to sites most likely to endure with or without a new expanded courthouse in the future. So this is evolving. I wanted to provide you this update so that you know staff are working quickly on this and balancing it with our other facility needs.
What's the status of, we talked during the budget cycle about getting resources on board so we could get going on courthouse planning. What is the status on that irrespective of this outside request?
We do have one FTE, and facilities is working with Aaron Calvert and David Martinez to work on getting that position filled.
Okay, thank you.
When more information is known, because right now, as I've indicated, we're really in the preliminary discussions, the court will be requesting a letter of support from the county that will indicate the intent to create more space in the event that two additional positions come to fruition. In any case, we do know that this work is important because we know we do need more courtroom space in the future. There is a concern that if Washington County is unable to create space, the legislature may not consider additional judges until the new courthouse is built. So that's a risk.
That's their previous stance.
Commissioner,
Can I ask a question? So when these judges are assigned, does the state look at the need across all counties, or how does that work?
I believe that to be true. I can get follow-up information, more
I'm just
detail as
curious.
far as what analysis is done. I will say when the state says there's new judges, this is a gift or an opportunity that if not taken, then
It's also an indication of what our backlog is, I would assume. So that's the other reason I'm asking the question.
Questions as well. What's being done in terms of looking at remote proceedings? I mean, we all understand the world changing. And not everybody needs to appear in front of a judge physically. I mean, you could have people at the jail, for instance, appearing in front of a judge. There's a lot of civil hearings that are not really necessary to sit in front of a judge, just so you can communicate. Is that being looked at all, or is it simply saying built in the building?
so there's two different, I would say, layers of this. There's two courtrooms needed now. Then I think it's the longer term, what's the vision of a new courthouse and what are those space needs?
But
To
he's
be
also
eligible-
asking what the state's strategy is with that, not just our strategy, even though the counties are on the hook. I think it's a good question. I think it goes outside of the scope of the leadership update right now.
It would be interesting though to
Thank you.
understand that, because we just simply pay the bill. They're the ones, it's their courts.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering what they're thinking.
We can add that to the further analysis, and thank you for that clarification, Chair. Any other questions on current state. So more to come. This is a work in progress. So I do want to highlight some recent accomplishments from our building services and our land use and transportation department. I want to recognize the efforts of our permitting team. I know your board has received several comments in the past regarding permitting times, legs in those permitting times, both from community members as well as our business community. They're working through a significant permit backlog that resulted from several staff retirements combined with recruiting challenges and consistently high permit volumes. Over the past month, as of September 30th, the team has reduced the turnaround time for initial permit setup from 7 to 8 weeks to 6.5 weeks. So really proud of that reduction in time. Reduced the turnaround time for pre-issuance file checks from 7 to 8 weeks down to 2.5 weeks. We focused our initial efforts here based on feedback from our customers of where we should focus time in reducing the permit backlog.
Do we also, on this, do we know the source of the software error related to the fees? Was it just human error or?
Let me follow up on that because I don't know that, Chair.
I just want to make sure that we're, as part of a learning organization, that we're learning from how situations like that occur so that we can ensure moving ahead that we have systems in place to forestall situations like that.
Let me follow up on that. One of the strategies that we are using is using recently retired employees and bringing back on a part-time basis. Part of this is not only just for staff capacity, but it's also part of a succession strategy of knowledge transfer too. So it's both looking at processes and also ensuring that our staff have knowledge in place, because once you have staff that retire after many years of service with a new staff, it takes several months up to a year to truly have that staff member onboarded to have that same work capacity that the previous permitting technician had.
And we have that topic coming up in a future work session.
Yep. And that concludes my weekly update.
Thank you. Mr. Carr.
Good morning, Chair Harrington. Good morning, Board of Commissioners. You mentioned Aid and Assist. We did file our amicus brief in partnership with Marion County last Wednesday. In addition, a group of circuit court judges have moved to intervene in the case as defendants and to participate as amicus. The original order, in addition to the things that concern us, prohibited the circuit court judges from holding the state in contempt for failure to accept patients at the state hospital, and the judges view that is a violation of their rights as judges to not be able to control the docket in front of them. Judge Mossman has scheduled oral argument on all of these motions for November 21st, which is the Monday before Thanksgiving. So I'll have further update after he makes additional decisions.
And just a reminder for me, Mossman is a federal judge?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I hadn't thought about the Oregon Circuit Court judges intervening.
Yes.
Interesting.
And then also you may have read in the paper that the hospitals have actually sued, a group of private hospitals have actually sued the state on the same grounds, the same issue.
Wow. I'll be interested in asking later when we're with our GR team how they see this issue coming higher up on the attention list during the legislative session or not.
Well, one of the challenges that I think we all face is that the legislature has actually done a lot of work on this topic over the last few years. And in particular, one of our arguments was the legislature in 2021 passed a bill, Bill 25, that redid the entire process for release from the state hospital. And Judge Mossman just overrode that. So if I were in the legislature, I'd be wondering what it is I need to do and whether a federal judge has the ability to do that. And of course, we argue that they don't. So we'll see what the judge does with that.
Yeah, but we all, I don't know this based on fact, rather just discussions that there's been a difficulty in investment levels in the state hospital, as well as in supporting the workforce for the state hospital that have exacerbated the situation. So, and I mean that by way of understanding and not by way of finger pointing. So it's, as Commissioner Rogers points out, this is a complicated situation.
Okay. And then just, I want to note, this is the first week in October, which is when the Supreme Court starts sitting. First Monday in October. As of yesterday, we had our first African American female justice sit and hear oral argument yesterday in a Clean Water Act case. This is a particularly challenging time to be a lawyer in America because the court is sweeping away massive precedents that we all relied on. Last term was a landmark year for the court, and there's several things in front of the court this year that could change life in America. So I will keep you updated when I hear things. But that's the end of my report. Thank you, Chair.
Wow, you're gonna have to let that one sit there for a little bit.
I had a sort of an epiphany. I'm moderating a panel on the First Amendment free exercise and establishment clause at the national conference later this month. And I'm sitting with a professor from Lewis and Clark and a solicitor general. And I asked, well, what advice would you give to a local government lawyer? And they said, I'd hate to be a local government lawyer.
Oh, don't. No. Rewind. That is not what we want our young people to hear.
Unfortunately, some of the cases they've decided, lawyers gave the exact right advice, and 2 out of 3 courts agreed with them, and then the Supreme Court said, no, that's not the law anymore. Several major areas of the law, and it's an exciting time, but it's very difficult to be sure about what your advice you're going to give to your clients.
Yes. The skies may not be as clear.
No.
But they're still worth working through in our democracy. Beats the alternative, right?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Diane.
Hey, Chair Harrington, and good morning, Board of Clean Water Services. There's just a couple updates to share today. So Clean Water Services will be at Centro's Economic Symposium on Wednesday. We sponsored a table at the event, and Director Treese and Director Five will be joining the team at that meeting. There will be a Cedar Mill Nature Park celebration on Wednesday with our contractors and partners following the completion of the 2-year Cedar Mill Interceptor project, and that'll be from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Director Treese, I know with your arm, I'm planning on being in attendance. It's a $8 million project, and it was one of the largest capital projects that we undertook during the pandemic.
When was that? When is that?
On Wednesday.
At what time? Oh, the 12th.
Yeah, 1:30 to 11:30 to 1:30. Yeah. So upgrading approximately a mile of large diameter sewer, and it followed the Cedar Mill Creek through the Twalton Hills Nature Parks. We worked with the partners there. So it's a successful project, and the team's looking forward to sharing their accomplishments. It was a design build project that went really well. Yesterday, Clean Water Services hosted an all-day tour briefing for 14 DEQ water quality staff and 2 Department of Fish and Wildlife staff. And that's really unusual to be able to get that many staff members to a briefing. And they wanted to learn more about Clean Water Services Tree for All program. There's a lot of regulatory interest in our nature-based solution. And Tree for All is really that key integrated water resources management strategy for Clean Water Services. And it's part of how we're planning for the future climate adaptation and the implementation of our watershed-based compliance approach to protect water quality in the fish in the river. So there's a lot of interest. It's really a smart water solution that's cost effective for our ratepayers because we need to maintain regulatory compliance that also engages our partners region-wide to really work together for the river. So as we heard at IWA, this nature-based solution, and because of the climate issues, is really a significant interest, and we're really on the leading edge of this approach.
If I might interrupt, reminds me of the 2019 WEFTEC And I remember there was a session within the exhibit area where Mark spoke, and I learned from other examples in the country. Really got me wondering for those DEQ personnel, what exposure they get to the industry and nature-based systems, because I sat through at that WEF another on the exhibit floor presentation as well. And I wonder if we need to encourage them, whether it's WEF or that World Water Congress that'll be in Toronto in August of 2024.
And it's an interesting question. They tend to learn through their permitting convenings. So they've had Clean Water Services there. So I've been to their permitting convenings to talk about it. But it would be amazing. EPA is at WEFTEC, for an example. But I think it's the cost of the travel and attendance. But I think they got a really great, inspiring day yesterday.
Well, that's why I'm
Yeah.
wondering about that workforce and how might we support that workforce in our role across the state even.
Because we really need a strong DEQ to be successful. So we'll kind of noodle through that, how to do that. Our operations team is looking forward to today to present their peak performance. To the board. Thank you.
One request, Tom Carr sort of brought it up. There's a Supreme Court case, as you know, going on what constitutes a wetland area. Wetlands have been the filters for a long time. We've done a lot of planning. Nothing, this is very preliminary, so nothing today, but it would be interesting over the next months, year, to have Jerry or whoever he would have give us an update, because that's going to redefine everything for your organization if that case goes a different way than currently is being adjudicated. So it's a very interesting case.
It's going to the core of EPA's authority to manage waters of the U.S. So we're tracking it. The National Association of Clean Water Agencies are really tracking it. But yeah, we'll put them as a board briefing from the context of Clean Water Services, what that change could mean.
What it would mean to you. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
It'll be interesting to see what sort of congressional response there is as we see more and more species in these delicate ecosystems endangered and die. Yep. We'll see. Yep. Okay, in preparation for our board today, I have a question, two questions on the CPACE item. On the topic sheet, it talks about board giving direction to draft and file an ordinance, yet at the same time, it seems like it's already been filed September 28th, and the title says to conduct a first reading. So I figured I'd clarify while we're all in work session as to which is it, because the topic sheet F3 seems conflicting to me.
The intent is to conduct a first reading,
Okay. Shall do.
and this is a follow-up on a work session item that the board had about a month ago.
Oh, yes, yes, I'm right there with you.
Okay. Yeah.
I was noting the conflicting message on the sheet and wanted to make sure we did it right. The other thing, Ms. Angie, I should have given you a heads up. I was hoping Matt would be in the room. I know at least a couple of commissioners inquired about this being a new program for us and suggested that we acknowledge that this is a pilot program and to move forward with it for at least a full 2-year implementation, well, a 3-year implementation. But during that 3rd year, after 2 years of the program existence, to direct you to do an assessment And I don't see any of that in the packet. So I thought I would raise it here before doing so in the meeting.
Thank you for raising it. And as you were speaking, I was scanning through that agenda item. Once again, you are correct. The board did direct staff to draft this as a pilot. So between this conversation and the meeting, I will be connecting with staff to make sure that's clear.
Okay, terrific. And we do have the Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting first, so that'll be good. And let's see. And I want to make sure that the board knows with our updated package yesterday, we received just a revised resolution and order with item D1 for action at the Housing Authority Board of Directors. The intent is all the same. So just an update there. Okay. All righty. So we will pause our work session and come back at 1 o'clock. We have an updated presentation for that topic. So with any of your advanced reading for questions or whatnot, maybe already taken care of in your advanced reading. But we do have a very full agenda, some really good topics. I'm really pleased that we have so much time for the government relations presentation. So we'll have a very full Tuesday. And if you need to zoom in, that's fine.
I'll be okay.
Okay, all righty. We'll see you all in the auditorium pretty soon then. Thank you.
Thank you.